welcome, Sarah. Over to you.
Thank you, Catherine. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. Those of you who've seen me before on one of these will know that I happen to live very close to a lot of train lines, and so do forgive any background noise coming from my side. I have, I think, about 7 trains every 10 minutes running past me into London Bridge train station. So huge apologies, but there's very little I can do. I will mute when possible. However, it's a lovely evening to be talking about Tuscany, and especially to be talking about Brunello di Montalcino. And I'm delighted that Francesco has been able to join us today as one of our favorite producers and very long-standing producer for the Wine Society. We're always happy to have any excuse to open these wines. And I hope that as members, you've seen the recent article in the current summer 1874 magazine featuring Francesco's Rosso di Montalcino. And tonight we're also going to be looking at his Brunello, which is available online if you are tempted by this afterwards. Francesco and I first met when I went out to Italy with Sebastian in one of my handover trips. And it was a fantastic winery visit, but the winery in question was sort of almost complete. It was just at the point where Francesco was moving tanks in, and it looked incredible. Sebastian had mentioned that just his last visit, it had just been a large hole in the ground. So it's wonderful to know that this producer is not standing still. They are still developing lots of new things, and I think it's really impacting the style of the wines and making them even more elegant and even more complex. So I'm looking forward to talking to Francesco tonight and hearing everything, all the updates from Canalicchio. So Francesco, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening. I'm very, very good. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Thanks a lot to the Wine Society team. Thanks to give me this great opportunity tonight because I'm really missing UK. I'm really missing Stevenage. One of the most beautiful memories I have about a tasting is in Stevenage, and the Wine Society tasting in London, in Brighton, everywhere. So you know that. So I want to thank you for inviting me to do that, to meet your members, and to talk about our family estate, to talk about Canalicchio di Sopra, and to talk about a bit about Montalcino, because I think the purpose tonight is also, let's say, to introduce my state, but also talk about the place where I am, when I grow up, where I'm making my wines. It's for me a big honor to be here because, and you can feel I'm a bit emotional because you know that Canalicchio di Sopra and the Wine Society has a long relationship. This year is the 10 years, so it's the 10 years anniversary. I just checked the first invoice before that because I want to be sure for what I stated. My first meeting with the Sebastian Payne, I still remember he was very impressed about the Rosso di Montalcino 2009. So we are approaching to release 19 in now, so it's 10 years. Thanks all the people that are going to stay with us for this hour. I hope to not be boring, but hope to stimulate a bit the interest of the people to drink Montalcino wines, and maybe when it's possible, we hope very soon to come to visit our region that has something very beautiful to show. It has one of the wine regions with the biggest and the highest biodiversity there is in the world. It's one of the wine regions that really kept the identity of an agricultural region, which is very important when you want to grow a fine wine, not just to make a monoculture, but to make something that keep sometimes the balance of the territory. So this is Montalcino. Maybe most of your members have already been here, but I hope to have more people, and that should be a good sign for the future. So I will make a brief introduction about the state, about who we are for people that don't know our brand. And then we're going to more specific talking about the terroir, talking about the wines that we're going to taste tonight. Canalicchio di Sopra, first of all, can be considered a very historical estate in Montalcino. Historical, not because we are the inventors of these great wines. I always like to remember that there is a family, thanks to his experience, the Biondisanti family, all the region had a possibility to experience this wine. All the winemaker had the possibility to start to make this wine. The Brunello was born thanks to the intuition of this family, the Biondisanti family, in the, like we can say, in the last 20 years of the 19th century, and start to become very shortly a a wine with a very big reputation, staying and going in the major tables of the world, aristocratic table, and also fine wine channels. But the region was very small. At that time, Montalcino was an agricultural place where there were almost 10,000 farmers working in the fields in Montalcino, and for sure the wine was not the main activity, but was a 360-degree agricultural system that was managed by mezzadria, so like a sharecrop between owners and farmers working, just sharing the fruits of the work. This situation changed, and after the Second World War, and I say that just to start talking about our origin, our roots. We don't want to blind. We are very proud that our origin has been for many generations here in Montalcino to be farmers. So before of being winemakers, our family has been a family of farmers, and we have, we've been here in Montalcino for like many generations. So it's a family from here. And my grandfather, that you can see now in the picture, is the founder of the estate. And after being a farmer, working in the mezzadria system, the sharecrop system, after the Second War, in a moment where Montalcino became very poor and many people decide to leave the place because it's become one of the most, we can say, forgotten place of Tuscany because of many reasons, but the most important was because of politic choice. This politic choice, they say that Montalcino was not an interesting place for the development of the industry, for the development of the big industrial center that at that time in the reconstruction of Italy were born in Tuscany and in Italy. So at that time, it was very frustrating. This became a very poor place. Many people escaped this place. And just a few people that decided to stay in Montalcino. In the few people, there were some people that at the beginning, they were called the crazy people of Brunello because they have in mind a dream. But at that time, it seems to be very impossible to realize, to achieve in the future. The dream was to make, with the knowledge of farmers, to make great wines like Brunello di Montalcino. The dream was to make a wine without no experience. They were not winemaker. So that people today, they changed their names. They are no more considered the crazy people of Montalcino, but they are called the pioneers of Brunello di Montalcino. Because in the, and my grandfather, Primo Pacenti, was one of them, because he was one of the person that in 1967, just 1 year after the release of first bottle of Canalicchio di Sopra, 1 year after, he formed the Consortium del Vino Brunello di Montalcino, together with other 15, 20 friends, farmers, and people from here, from Montalcino. The constitution of the consortium was one of the most important things for Montalcino. There was that was and is still today a place where all the choices about the appellation, where all the direction that the appellation took during these years, we take all the decisions in that place. So that was very important for the development, for the growing of the region. And thanks to the activity of the consortium, Brunello di Montalcino became like a wine famous in worldwide, around the world, in a very short time. Because if you consider the wine was born like 150 years ago, for the first time, it was a very specific, was a very tiny production, still very, very good grape. And as I say, it's thanks to the experience of Beyond the Scientific, these farmers, they had a chance, they have the possibility to make their acquisition, their investment in the region in the 60s. So Canalicchio is historical because of that, because it's not one of the inventors of Brunello, but because it's one of the main actors of the growing of Brunello since the 60s, when the Brunello started to become a wine for the market, where for my grandfather, for farmers like us, the wine needs a needing for selling this wine to survive, to make investment, to continue our activity. And since then, we can say we never stop. We are now at the third generation. So the first generation, Primo Pacenti, my grandfather, the second generation, and that was a really lucky marriage for me, I mean, for our family, for sure, for my mother, but also for our wines. Because this person, this is my father, Mr. Pierluigi Ripaccioli. He came in the 55 when with his family, when he was 12 years old. He came from Maremma, so nearby Montalcino, let's say like 50 miles from Montalcino. And they moved to Montalcino, and they bought a small podere. Here, the podere is the house with the fields around, with a small vineyard, with 6 hectares of lands, empty lands, and 10 hectares of forest in a very famous place in Montalcino that was not so famous at that time. This place is Montosoli. So for people that know a bit about Montalcino, it's a very important hill, it's a very important crew, we can say, is a very important subzone of the north side of Montalcino. So the marriage between my mother and my father was also the marriage between my father and my grandfather, that they start to put together 2 different terroirs, both in the north side of Montalcino, but with completely different soil composition, with 2 soil composition that they stay very well together. 2 soil composition, they give a lot of character to the wine, but also they give a lot of uniqueness to the wine. One of the words that I'm gonna tell many times tonight is the first one is uniqueness. Not the only one, but write down uniqueness, because it's one of our philosophy of production. So my grandfather and my father, 1966 to 1987, my grandfather, from 1987 to 2001, my grandfather and my father working together. So the first part was only Canalicchio in terms of lands. Then it was Canalicchio and Montosoli. The brand stay always the same, Canalicchio di Sopra, which is the name of the place, but also the name of our brand. We have a big feeling, and also when it was very trendy to change the name of the wine using the name of the producer. My grandfather, my father, they always say that the people pass, the land stay. So we always like to keep the importance of Canalicchio, the importance of the place in our label, because we think that this is an eternal link to the place, and it can always reflect not the Primo Pacenti or the Pierluigi Ripaccioli or Francesco Ripaccioli style, but the terroir style, which is our goal in the production, to make wines that tell you where the wine came from. Just to finish the excursus about the generation, the history, from 2001, me, my brother, and my sister, we start to enter in the state. Let's say we have to make a bit early. I was very young, I was only 14 years old, so I didn't start to work at that time. But the state officially passed to us because we had some problem, like a family problem. But officially, the new generation entered 100% in the management, making the harvest, making the wines, taking care about the market, and also taking care about a new project, which is a project that my sister is managing, which is a project of hospitality. This happened in 2007. So in 2007 is the new generation, the third generation that takes the opportunity to manage the estate. As I said, the state is divided in 2 main different parcel in two main different group, we can say. Both are in the north side of Montalcino. So first of all, the estate is located Montalcino. We are in south of Tuscany, south of Siena, around 30 miles south of Siena, that's where Montalcino is located. But Montalcino, it's a very big region. Montalcino is a very big village in terms of lands. The village by itself is very small. Only 2,000 people live in the village. But all the lands around where you can grow Brunello di Montalcino, because Brunello you can grow only in the region of Montalcino, all the region is very big. So as you can understand, you can have different expression, especially because we all, the producer, now more than 250 producers, we work with one grape, which is the Sangiovese, the king of Tuscany, but especially the king of Montalcino, because I always like to say that the great intuition of Biondi Santi was to understand that the greatness of the terroir of Montalcino, and he decided to make, for the period he made a wine, a very modern wine, because the tradition of Tuscany has been always to blend many different grape varietals, while the experiment and the big understanding, the big intuition of Biondi Santi was to use one grape, because the greatness was not in the recipe, was not in the way of winemaking, the greatness was in the terroir. So in the experience of the people, they always been here making wines, the soil and the climate, which is a very particular climate in Montalcino. But as I said, Montalcino, yeah.
Francesco, that must have been challenged in the 90s or early 2000s with French varieties. The Brunello stayed strong and only stuck to Sangiovese then.
Yeah, I think you know, you're talking with a producer that we make only Montalcino wines. So we never, and which is good. I mean, Montalcino can also grow other grape varietals, not like Brunello, but like IGT wine, like a different kind of wine, like personal wines, not wines under the umbrella of the appellation. But we decide always to focus on the Montalcino wine. So we only grow the primary cru vines, we only grow the vines that are for making Brunello and Rosso di Montalcino. So there is no temptation to do different grape varietals, because me personally, I think that every region has to make his job. And a great terroir, it doesn't need to copy. That's my point of view. I respect other point of view for sure. But for me, I think that if we want to drink like a great bubbles, I'm not looking for bubbles of Sangiovese. You know, I can drink a great Franciacorta, I can drink a great Trento DOC, I can drink a great champagne for sure. But I'm very specific for what I drink. And this is my philosophy, it's been philosophy of my grandfather and my father. So this is why we decide to only keep the Sangiovese in our vineyards. But more, because the grapes we have, Montalcino has a system of let's say, three different appellations, from the most important to the base. The most important is the Brunello di Montalcino. I'm talking about vineyards, okay? So you have the Brunello di Montalcino, we can say is our primary cru, and then we can have the Rosso di Montalcino is our second cru. Canalicchio di Sopra own 90% of the vineyards like primary cru. So I'm going to explain much better later, but the way we do also the Rosso di Montalcino is by using some primary cru to do also the second cru wines. But I'm going to explain a bit later about it. A few words about the place where we are. You can see on top, the village of Montalcino. You see this picture on top. Here we are in the north side of the hill. You can see the hill of Montosoli is the top of the hill. It's the only one hill you have in Montalcino separate than the main hill of Montalcino, because you imagine Montalcino like a cave where all the vineyards are surrounding the four different sides of the hill. But Montosoli is a different hill, okay? So here is the estate we have in Montosoli with these vineyards. The estate was belonging my father, so the Ripaccioli family. And this estate has the difference. Canalicchio is nearby. It's only 1 kilometer away, same side, northeast side, same side, same elevation, about 300 meters above the sea level. But the difference between these two is the soil component. We are in the north side of Montalcino. So on a climate point of view, we can say are almost the same. We are in the side where, sure, is a bit more cooler especially during the night. I'm not talking about the maximum temperature during the day, but I'm more talking about the excursion between day and night. Here is a bit more evident. Like I want to point out one thing. When I talk about the north side, because we are specific from the north side, I'm not saying, and I want to be confused because I'm very honest in the region, I'm not saying that this side is better than another side. I'm just showing to say the beauty of Montalcino is really the diversity. I was saying at the beginning, 27,000 hectares of lands in Montalcino, just 2,000 of vineyards for the premier crop. So that's the first message. Montalcino planted vines only in the best place. But you can understand that from the north side to the south side, east or west, sometimes you've been here, you can drive 35 minutes, 40 minutes. It's a huge region, like to say there is one style. So there are different styles. We are very unique, as I say, because we only have vineyards in the north side. So we don't blend north to south. That sometimes is very common to do that for other producers and gives very good results. But our choice, by chance, we were born in the north side. So when my grandfather bought the estate, he had not the chance to let's say to decide what to buy. He bought what was available at that time. But since then, the growing of our estate has been a choice to grow only in one side of Montalcino, to be very specific. But inside this side, the north side, we have two different, as I say, two different parcels. You saw before the Montosoli, and now you are seeing the Canalicchio crew. Specifically, this is the Vigna Casaccia, where we start to make a single vineyard from 2015 vintage. The two zones are completely different in terms of soil composition. Let's talk about Canalicchio, what you are seeing. It's very clear. You see, mainly component is clay. Clay you can see, but it's a very particular clay. The clay is a brown clay. It's not a gray. It's not a blue clay. This means that the clay has a good big amount of mineral elements, especially in calcium carbonate and magnesium. This is for reflect to the wine. These two components, clay with mineral elements, wines they are very opulent, they are very sometimes fat, especially a bit warmer vintage, but at the same time they have the tension, the minerality. These calcium carbonates makes the tannins, they have a big presence here, very silky. The Canalicchio, the Brunello di Montalcino, our flagship one, is made 50% from Canalicchio and 50% from Montosoli. The other soil, which is more rocky soil, is more a galestro soil, how we say in Tuscany. And this soil has more components of stones, is a more mineral soil, is a soil where the roots go much deeper in the soil because the clay keeps more water, while here it dry more the water. And this soil makes wines more higher acidity, with more tension, more vertical wines, with much more, let's say, minerality. Wine that it's the opposite of Canalicchio. Canalicchio can be considered like a bit more sweet wine, not sweet in terms of sugar residual, but in terms of tannins, in terms of roundness, while Montosoli is much more salty. The saltness level here is very high. And we have the chance tonight, we taste the 13, where is one of the vintage where we decide to use more Montosoli in our Brunello blend. While the Rosso di Montalcino, for the characteristic of this wine, and also because in Canalicchio we have some of the younger vines just planted a few years ago that we don't use for the Brunello when they are less than 10 years old, because in Canalicchio we have more hectares, and because of the style of the clay of Canalicchio, the Rosso is much more, let's say 90% of the grapes for the Rosso di Montalcino, they came from the soil of Canalicchio crew, while For the Brunello is a 50% and 50%. Having these two soils, you know that the new generation said, we don't want to change many things since the tradition of my father, my grandfather, but at the same time, this is, as you say, an estate always in evolution. Tradition and innovation are the two words to make a classic wine. So we don't like to be classified like a classic producer, a modern producer. We prefer to say that we are very classic with respect to tier one. But the new generation made a project that went back, researching the roots of the state. When my grandfather and my father, they didn't know each other, and they used to have two different estates. When my grandfather used to make wines only from Canalicchio, and my father used to sell grapes because he never made wines before to other producers only from Montalcino. So there is a project in the future. One of the wines already being released, you know, is the Vigna Casaccia, is this wine, 100% from this vineyard. The other one, the project of a single vineyard, very small amount of production from the two historical, more specific vineyards between the two zones of production. But the most important wines in terms of numbers for sure, like a flagship wine, remains the Brunello di Montalcino, which is like a blend, which is same grape varietals, but between these terroir. A few words also about the cellar, if you're okay, or if you have other questions that you want to know. I don't want to abuse of the time, that I'm looking to the time. I know that it's important to keep to keep in mind.
You're good, Francesco. A little bit about the cellar, though, would be wonderful, because it is so beautiful.
Completely renewed in 2018. It was a big investment for us, but was a needing and to give a new house to our wines. It was made in a concept of having a very sustainable cellar. We go 15 meters under the ground in the hill of Montalcino, surrounded by the clay, perfect condition to keep temperature, humidity constant and high in terms of the humidity and low in terms of temperature during the years in a natural way. This is also, sustainability is also an important word for us. We are organic in the vineyards, but it's not the only one thing that makes a producer sustainable. This investment for us is a very important sign of sustainability, the attention for the environmental, for the place where we are. The estate, the cellar, same reflect, let's say, our philosophy, our style. No, it has also in the architecture, it has tradition, the art, innovation on the floor. And but the touch of tradition that we kept is the idea of aging our wines in a reduction style. You're not seeing here big barrels because it's trendy, because it's tradition. You're seeing big barrels because we study a lot of our wines, the place where we are not against barrique. I love drinking wines made in barrique. I drink Burgundy very often. I drink great wines, Italian wines made in barrique. It's not a problem of the size, is a problem of understanding what kind of grapes you have. And we have very delicate grapes in the north side. We have grapes where the flavors are more floral, less fruity, are more balsamic in terms of licorice, in terms of mints, in terms of ground of forest, than bloody sensation, than fruity. So we prefer to age in a reduction system. So without a very small exchange of oxygen with the external. We do that by using big barrels with a very big dimension of the food. 2,500, 5,000 liters, all the new idea of me and my brother is being to organize the vinification, all the passages on the gravity system, but also to reduce at the minimum the use of the pump, but also by multiple. Multiple means that now we can keep every single vineyard, 15 different vineyards we have in the two crew separate from the time of the harvest, from the time of the pressing to the time of the aging, that I prefer to say the time of the refinement, because we age the scotch, we don't age the wine. The motive why we put the wine here is not to age the wine, but is really to refine the wine. So think about the use of wood, only neutral wood, only very long seasoned oak we buy. The wood for us is not an ingredient in the wine. The wood for us is a needing for the wine. The wine needs the wood to be refined, to make a longer chain of polyphenol components, to give the deep of the wine. We are not looking for the impact. We're looking for the deep. We're looking to make extremely elegant wine. Elegance is the second word for tonight. Uniqueness and elegance is the second word for tonight. Elegance has been our slogan since 1966. The pursuit of elegance is the engine of our production. And we try to make elegant wines by having this attention of respecting the purity of the fruit, respecting the place where the wine came from. So the big barrel is a precious choice to make elegant wines, and it's also to make a wine that respects the wine where the wine came from.
Yeah, no, the winery looks fantastic now. I think somebody has mentioned how impressive it is in the chat, but that is a great shot with the lights on. And I remember visiting you dug out the downstairs when I was last there, and you were just moving some of the barrels in, and the architecture is beautiful. You've
So we had a long tasting that day, tasting by the barrel. My favorite tasting is tasting from the barrel. Because sometimes I'm a bit, especially when one is just bottled, by tasting by the bottle, I'm a bit nervous. That's the final. But I'm very have good feeling when I taste from the barrel.
But I think you accurately described or brilliantly described the difference the soil makes on the two major soil types you're working with. But as you say, tasting the 15 different vineyard plots you're working with, each one has its own identity. That you're then able to assemble for the strongest blend.
You're right. Our idea is this. We didn't make the new single vineyards project because we want to put the Brunello, the flagship Brunello, the historical label, like a second level of quality. That's not the case. The difference of quality between Brunello or the single vineyard, there is no difference for us at the same level of quality. Because, as I said, we have 20 hectares of vines. By 20 hectares of vines, we could make, by the law, 110,000 bottles of Brunello di Montalcino. Let's say 2 of these 2 hectares to be preserved for Rosso di Montalcino. So we could make like 95,000, 100,000 bottles of Brunello. You know that Canalicchio released no more than 42,000 bottles of Brunello in the best year, and we release other 4,000 bottles of Casaccia, 5,000 bottles of Riserva, and in the future will be 4,000 bottles of Montosoli. So where the other 50,000 bottles goes, that we made a choice a few years ago when me and my brother we entered in the state. This is also why we made a new cellar. We used to have these Brunello grapes. We used to sell grapes in the past, my grandfather and my father. And we decided to reduce the grapes we sell, to vinificate everything, but at the same time to not grow in the quantity of Brunello. And we decided to not make another base Brunello, okay? Maybe easier, maybe. So we say we have a flagship wine that's been in the market for 50 years, and people knows us to make a serious Brunello. So why with the same grapes, instead of making a base Brunello, same grapes, same wine, why we don't make a great Rosso di Montalcino? Because when you take like a good vineyards, primer cru vines, and you decide to put another label that on the chart is supposed to be lower level of quality, but for us it's just the timing, because of some vineyard, some selection, every year, there is something that is ready earlier. So if you keep too long in the cellar to make maybe a base Brunello, you make something that can be a bit tired. So we prefer to make a very, very fresh Rosso di Montalcino, also because this is, our business card wine, the wine that almost everybody can buy for the price point, to start to understand Canalicchio di Sopra, our idea of sangiovese, to start to, before going to the Brunello, which is for sure a more expensive wine and is a wine that needs a bit more, I mean, more investment and more, I don't want to say right situation, because I am one that is pushing that you can drink Brunello every time, in every occasion. Brunello was, until 20 years ago, was the wine of the Christmas party only. It was the wine of the gift. It was the wine. I think Brunello has a characteristic, has the elegance. The elegance is something that that you can drink with everything. And I want to point out one more thing about these. Our wines, as I said, are based on elegance, but we are producers that we think that a great wines is great since the beginning. So you remember the last dinner we made together, we were in that restaurant that I opened in 1990, Brunello di Montalcino, was showing very, very well. So our wines, they have a good potential for aging. 1990 was a 30 years old. I mean, we cannot ask the wine to be like a 2 years old wine, but it was still very alive. The fruit was still there. The wine can age very well. But at the same time, if you open now the cooler release, the 16 is drinkable. It's not undrinkable. We think that, and we try to reach the balance during the maturation in the plant. So without forcing too much, always keeping the right amount of acidity, always having a wine that can be very, very well balanced. I look in the time that I want to leave the stage for questions and everything. So.
Well, no, I was going to say it's a wonderful introduction into the two wines that we're going to taste today. So, so should we talk a little bit more to the Rosso and to the Brunello and the perhaps the differences? But first of all, talking about the 2018 Rosso di Montalcino.
Sure. So as I say, Rosso di Montalcino mainly came from Canalicchio, so the place where we have more clay, because the choice of making Rosso di Montalcino, as I explained, is from the youngest vines. Some of them are vines, primary cru vines, Brunello di Montalcino. We make an internal by our choice. We are not forced to do that, but we make a reclassification of some grapes that we could use by the law to make Brunello di Montalcino. The Rosso is, for us, it's a wine that, first of all, is a very versatile wine. It's a wine that you can really have with everything. If you have some wines that is less than 10 years old, we use only for the Rosso. We don't use for the Brunello. For the Brunello, we use only wines for more than 10 years old. And you have the 18 vintage. You know that for me, it's one of my favorite vintage. I like a bit more cooler vintage, the vintage where you can feel the freshness, you can feel the acidity. The 18 is a super elegant vintage. It's very vibrant. It's a vintage that it's a very gastronomic vintage. This is a Rosso di Montalcino for food. We have also the 19, which is on the other side. It's more opulent, more fat. You can drink a bit easier, while the 18 Rosso di Montalcino is extremely elegant, but has more acidity, needs a bit more for food. It's a bit more serious Rosso di Montalcino. The Rosso makes in the cellar the same process of the Brunello, with a difference that after 1 year of aging, the parcel, the barrels that we select to make Rosso di Montalcino, we make an interruption of the process of refinement in the barrels, and we bottle like Rosso di Montalcino. So this is a Rosso that is made by refined in oak, which is not required by the law. You can also do Rosso di Montalcino in stainless steel tanks. You can release after 1 year from the harvest. We prefer, as I say, to give value to this Rosso di Montalcino because we sacrifice some Brunello grapes to that. So we keep in food. We release after 1 year and a half. We make a wine that really represents the business car wine of our estate. So if it's a business car, how can be? It has to be a really good wine, because we know that more people has the chance to taste Rosso before drinking our Brunello di Montalcino. And really, when you taste our Rosso di Montalcino, another characteristic is the drinkability. It's very difficult sometimes to make a very drinkable wine without making a banal wine. Okay, so for me, the bigger challenge is to make a wine that you can really enjoy. You can finish the bottle. You know that we are a producer that we are very oriented to make a lot of big bottles. because I mean, Magnum 3 liter, 5 liter, we have 18 liters here. So a lot of big barrels we like to do. And also with the Rosso di Montalcino, because sometimes one bottle is not enough. So the drinkability is a good point of this wine. And we are a producer that we think a wine with a great drinkability is an elegant wine, it's a balanced wine, is a great value in a wine. For me, when I drink a bottle of wine, I want to drink the bottle of wine. I don't want to just taste. And there was a big teachment that it's reminded me one of the teachment that my grandfather gave me. I don't have a lot of possibility to work with him because he had a problem. He has been a wheelchair for 15 years before dying 8 years ago. But one of the teachment that is driving me in the winemaking is remember, always make a wine for drinking, not just for tasting. So it's different concept when we taste or when we drink. In the drinking, there is the pleasure. There is a pleasure of finishing the bottle. This is not a simple wine. The 18 was a cold vintage. It has 14% of alcohol. The 19 says 14.5, but is the balance. You don't need, you have not to feel the alcohol. Everything is surrounded, everything is balanced by the acidity. So balance is the word for this wine, together with the pleasure of drinking. Brunello di Montalcino instead is our, as I said, is our flagship wine. We do around 40,000 bottles per year, less or more, because sometimes we make more Rosso, sometimes more Brunello. We can decide, having only Brunello, we can decide to make more Rosso. You cannot make opposite. If you have a Rosso vineyards, you cannot make Brunello from these vineyards, but you can make how we make. Brunello, is a wine in terms of refinement. The average is almost 3 years. It depends on the vintage. We like to keep the wine in wood. How long the wines ask us to stay in the wood. No, we don't have a fixed rule, but by the law it's minimum 2 years. We release after 5 years, and you have a super important vintage for us. You know how important it's been 2013 for us. I'm so happy today that you chose, and we have like very similar tastes. We already discovered that you chose two super classic vintage for Montalcino. These are two vintages that like the 16, the Cura release, that all the collectors, the big lovers of Brunello, they have in their cellar, because it's a vintage that can last for 20 years. It's a vintage where you have a great freshness. As I said before, if you remember, in this blend, in the 2013, we decided to use much more Montosoli and less Canalicchio. Why? Because it was a bit more wet vintage. So the Canalicchio has the clay, the bunch, the berries, they grew up a bit too much. So to find the right balance in concentration, we prefer to use more berries from the Montosoli. This is a wine that is like a deductive wine. If you are like a sommelier, you have to talk about Montalcino, take 2013, take 2016, because you can identify the place where you are. The climate was not very warm, so it didn't change the wine. There are some very good vintages in a warm vintage, like 15. The wine are great, even if the wine was warm. The climate was warm, but 13 was a super classic, very cold with big excursion day and night. So you have, first of all, you have on the nose the very, very big presence of the characteristic. They tell you we are in the north side of Montalcino. You have the licorice, you have these tobaccos, you have this kind of, let's say, ground of forest, a bit more rustic flavors that you usually have in the north side. And when you discover, because at the beginning the wine is a bit close, this is the sign of a great vintage. You remember we age in reduction, so it's normal to have the wine a bit close. I just recommend a good glass that can help to open, but 5 minutes and it's enough. And
I was going to suggest decanting for this wine. Decanting this wine would be a good option. I think a member in the chat earlier said they'd opened it a couple of hours before. I imagine that's really singing now.
Yeah, sure. And when you start to open, you feel the floral nose, no? Another characteristic they tell you, we are in the north side of Montalcino. The mouth is very you say you can feel the saltness of Montalcino is clear here, no? It's a wine of great amount of acidity. It's a wine of length. It's not a wine that gives you big impact in the mouth at the beginning, but it's a wine that in the next 2 hours, you still remember, you still feel in the mouth. This is for me the sign of a great wine, a fine wine. The direction of the wine is the horizontal, is the vertical direction. Is the direction of a wine that goes in the deep of the mouth, not just in the beginning of the impact. So that's the style of 2013. Really, what to say? For us, it was a super vintage because we had a good hour, good score. We've been in the top 100 of Wine Spectator with this wine, and this makes us very big pleasure because we always made wine in our style without following trends, without following something that change every year, but trying to explain to the people what's our style. You can like, you cannot like, but that's our, and when there are like also journalists that recognize what we're doing, it makes a huge pleasure for sure. But this is really one of the vintage that is in my heart. One of the most difficult harvests I made with, so it was not relaxed vintage, but with one of the most beautiful results that we reach.
No, it's drinking beautifully now, but it's also a wine that we probably opened a little too young. I think I'm remembering the 1990 that we tried together, and this has got many years to go. So no, if anybody has got a couple of bottles of these, if you're enjoying one tonight, leave the other one for a few years and see how it fares if you've got good cellar conditions. Francesco, I'm afraid we're going to have to move on to some questions, I think. We've got plenty coming in from the members. Thank you so much for that introduction. It was just fantastic to hear. And I think for me, the precision in your descriptions of these wines has been fantastic, and the impact of the soils, because so often it's a question that we sort of ask, how is the terroir really impacting the wine? And to be able to pinpoint those different flavor profiles is great. And I think extremely well grounded. I think having tasted from your cellar, it's very accurate. Catherine, thanks for joining us. How are we doing on the question side?
Great, we've got some great questions coming through. Thank you everyone for sending those. I'm going to start with a couple that I'm going to sort of combine together for you, Francesco and Sarah. So the first one is question sort of where your main markets are for the Brunello, and understanding that restaurants are quite a big market for you. What was the impact of COVID on that, see, with them being shut and not being able to?
So for Canalicchio di Sopra, but for Brunello in general, the United States is the main market. Has been the main market for many years. There are many factors because of that, but it represents almost 30% of the market for Brunello di Montalcino. And for us, it's a very stable market. We start to export in the United States in 1979 with the Brunello 1974. So it's a very long relationship with this market. For what Canalicchio di Sopra, but is a trend that is very common in Montalcino in the last few years, for us, UK become the second market. So it's also thanks to the Wine Society that it has a good, helps in these 10 years to make the brand more the people more awareness about our brand. But yeah, the UK is our second market, and is a market that is growing every year. There's a big attention about Italian wines. There is a big attention about also the way that Sarah is doing with the In Premier campaign. It really focus the attention to the region. In terms of COVID, let's say that we have been very, very lucky here in Montalcino because, also because the situation has been very safe, but we are a small community here and we have a lot of space for each person. 5,000 people in total and 27,000 hectares of land. So we have many space for us. But in terms of restaurant, we lost almost all the sales in restaurant. We have been very lucky, I was saying, because we had 2 great vintages in these 2 years to sell, 15 and 16. So there is a big interest on the private side, like the wine society members, private collectors, to invest, to buy, to invest, to enjoy, to drink these two vintages. So Canalicchio di Sopra has also a long tradition in serving restaurants, and what we did is we saved some wines for when the restaurant they can be 100% reopen, to be sure that some of these fantastic vintage can be available also in the restaurant. So we kept the wine. We make investment by ourselves to help this reborning of the market, because it's important to have both.
Lovely, thank you. So the next question we've got is from Alistair Dudley, and he would like to know whether you use a single Sangiovese clone across all the vineyards.
No, we have many different Sangiovese clones. We have some of the, let's say, traditional clone, because was the clone that was selected in the Beyond the Santi vineyards. That is now a commercial clone that everybody can buy. It's the BBS 11. We can say the Vigna Vecchia Mercatale, where we usually do the Riserva. We have this clone, one part of the Vigna Casaccia, where we do the single vineyard, we have this clone. We have in total 15 different clones of Sangiovese, because especially in the new plantation of the 90s, of the 2000s, we decided to use clones specific from the soil. So there is an analysis of the soil, exposition, everything, to be both the clone and the rootstock more specific, to make very balanced grapes, not too big, not too small, to have a balance in the wines.
Excellent. So the next question we've got is from John Kavanagh, and he is asking whether the single plot wine, I have to, please excuse my pronunciation, is the La Casaccia. He says it sounds fantastic and it gets rave reviews. So Sarah, putting you on the spot a little, is the Wine Society planning on stocking it?
Yeah, I'm delighted to say that I believe we've stocked it since the first vintage. So we tend to release it in the autumn with our Brunello offer. Unfortunately, Francesco's not making a lot of it, so we don't have a very large allocation, but it sells out in the autumn offer. Hopefully we'll be listing it most years. So as long as Francesco offers it to us and it tastes as delicious as it has done so far, we'll continue to offer that to members. So do look out for it in the autumn.
Thank you. It's also nice because the first offer of this wine was made through the Wine Society. So the 15 vintage, thanks to the campaign and premiere, was made by Sarah. We offer first to the Wine Society la Sierra. And the wine, it's something that's very specific. I repeat, the point of this wine is to make something that is very unique. It's not better than Brunello, but even if there are different vintages, you can identify the vineyard. That's my idea of a cru. It's not the best one, but it's the most recognizable. It's something that you can recognize. The aim, the objective is that you are in the blind tasting, people say, oh, this is Casaccia. It's a very unique, and the choice of this vineyard, it's because it was very stable. Hot vintage, warm vintage, cold vintage, rainy. You can identify the style of this vineyard. So that's for me the purpose of making a single vineyard. It's not to make a better wine. Otherwise, you can make a selection of best grapes. No, it is like it is, and it will be produced every year. It's not like a Riserva that is produced only in the super vintages.
Wonderful. We've had a question from Beth, which I'm sure many members will also be thinking as well, and she would like to know what your favourite food matches for Brunello di Montalcino are, whether they're traditional or perhaps the non-traditional. What would you eat with it?
Okay, I like this question, because usually you can expect like a very, very traditional answer, like pinchi with wild boar. Wild boar ragu, or like a steak or something like that. But I have to say that I have usually I do my tasting here with people, and very often, like tonight, something that is saved from this glass, from this bottle that I open, will be joined with my girlfriend or sometimes with friends. And I have tuna tonight. I'm not scared about it. I mean, Brunello, especially the style we make, is super elegant. It's okay. This is a provocation. I'm not saying that the best matches is tuna and Brunello, for sure, with a great steak, but it's very versatile. The elegance, when you have acidity in the wine, it goes with almost everything. But if you never had Brunello, you want to start, just buy a great steak that you have great meat in the UK and open a bottle of Brunello, and you never make a mistake.
Sarah, would you agree?
Totally. I think the safe bet is to go traditional and to buy some wonderful red meat, wild boar steak, lamb. I think it's great with a Sunday roast. But I also, like Francesco, will be finishing my glass tonight. And actually we're having it with roast chicken. And again, I'm not very worried about that match either, because I think that with this acidity and this elegance, it will pair very well. No trouble.
And the rosso, you asked me about Brunello, but the rosso di Montalcino is also much more versatile. You can have for breakfast for sure. For a Tuscany breakfast for sure. I mean, a Tuscany breakfast, it's like something like salami and cheese. I mean, it's perfect. The rosso, you can really enjoy a glass with a mixed salad, with everything. I mean, but any kind of elegant wines, when you drink a great Pinot Noir, when you drink a great Nebbiolo, this kind of grapes, their focus on the elegance. I mean, they can go with everything.
Lovely. Now, obviously, there are some restrictions still in place at the moment, but when we are able to move a little more freely, are we able to come and visit the winery? Are we able to come and see you and taste your wines in person?
Yeah, sure. The winery is, it's open for visitors. As I said, we also have, you can see in the website, we have a hospitality part. We have 5 villas to rent in the vineyards where Sarah stayed with us. So it's a place that you can really, that's the Borgo Canalicchio di Sopra, which is in the regional part where my grandfather found the estate, just across the street where we have the Cellar now. That was open in 2011. So you can stay with us, you can for sure. And if you, came in this tasting room and these our wines.
Wonderful. I think then to finish, Bridget, I'll paraphrase the question that you popped in the chat. Francesco, you've spoken a lot about the history of the winery and your father and your grandfather and it being passed down, and how tradition and innovation are like key components. For the future, what's the sort of the future? Is there going to be a 4th generation that it's going to go on to? What do you see for Canalicchio di Sopra?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I have I'm not child at the moment, but my brother has 2, my sister has 3, so there is for sure continuity. There will be the problem how to manage all these people. We are a big family, so I think yeah, sure. We hope that this estate can have a future, but for now, I'm here like to guarantee another 50 years of future for sure. I want to stay until I'm old. No, I'm scared. The future for us will be in the same direction. Always keep in mind that tradition is important, but also innovation is important. The important is to not lose the link from where you are, to make something unique, something different that is not possible to reply. Otherwise, if you make things that everybody can do, there is no reason to buy Montalcino wines. No, there is no reason to buy Canalicchio di Sopra wine. So the important is to give a motive to the people why they can choose you, and we do by really respecting. For us, all the people are very welcome to visit us because we really like to show what we are doing. And usually when the people came here, when they come back, everything changed. They open some bottles more than usual because they see what we are doing.
Perfect. Lovely. So it's one to watch. We'll keep an eye on you. Thank you very much, Sarah and Francesco.
Until I can visit again. I think the buyers at the Wine Society have the itchiest of feet to get out and visit our suppliers again. And yeah, I look forward to being in Montalcino.
We hope soon that this situation can finish. As Giovanni Manetti is writing, my great friend, Giovanni Manetti from Fontodi is great friend. Ciao Giovanni. So it's this situation can last, can finish, and we can really restart to welcome people from UK in Montalcino, but also me to come back to UK very soon.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much both, and thank you members for joining us. Sarah, I'll let you do the final thank you and goodbyes.
Well, I think it really is very easy for me to say how wonderful this evening was, Francesco. You're a perfect presenter, giving us so much information about your wines and your family business. So thank you for taking your evening to spend time with us. We're sorry it's not in person, but next year, hopefully, we'll be back to physical tastings. And I will look forward very much to those when they come around safely. But until then, I hope the members watching have had a wonderful evening and enjoy the summer that we have, these wonderful wines and dreams of Tuscany until you can get out there a bit sooner. Thanks everybody backstage, Catherine, Gil, Tim, for hosting perfectly as always. Francesco, cheers.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. It was beautiful to be also just virtual, but just the beginning. So we are close, and it's a good glass of wine. It's helped, and it helped a lot in the last few months. So luckily we have the wine. Cheers.
It's mandatory. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.